Hello, and welcome to the Nonfiction Kidlit Craft Conversations podcast, where we take a deep dive into the craft and business of children's nonfiction, featuring new release authors. I'm your host, Kirsten Larson, author of Reimagining Your Nonfiction Picture Book. Today, I have with me Ann Koffsky, author and illustrator of Ping Pong Shabbat, the true story of champion Estee Ackerman, illustrated by Abigail Rajanov, and the forthcoming The Peddler and the President, illustrated by Pedro Rodriguez. Welcome to the show, Ann.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that introduction. It's great to be here. It's great to talk about books.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to be talking with you about school visits, which is a very
Yes.
popular topic. But
Mhm.
before we do that, tell me a little bit about yourself and your books.
Sure. I'm the author and the illustrator. Well, I should say sometimes illustrator. Actually, these two nonfiction books that I have that we're going to talk about a little bit is I did not illustrate, but I am an author and an illustrator of more than 50 books for kids. A lot of them have Jewish content. I seem to really gravitate towards that subject, though I like other stuff too. And you mentioned Ping Pong Shabbat, which came out this past September, which is the true story of ping pong champion Estee Ackerman, who goes to my synagogue and is really great.
Cool, very
Yeah.
cool.
So that was where I found that story. And the other one that's coming out soon, which you mentioned, is Peddler and the President, which is about the friendship between President Harry Truman and his longtime friend Eddie Jacobson, and how that friendship was a really part of his both of their whole lives, was lifelong, and how it impacted some important policies in the end. So it's very cool to dig into those stories.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Hmm.
Well, you are a school visit pro. You do a lot of school visits and venue visits.
Yes.
But so for those who don't know what we're talking about, give us a little bit of an idea of what is a school or venue visit? What do they typically entail? So where are you doing them? What are some of the key elements?
Sure. It's first of all, the key element is that you get to visit your readers where they are. So that could be in a lot of different places. I love doing it because of that. As authors, we're so lonely. We are in our little, I don't know what we call, at our desk or in our little caves or wherever we are, and we don't see the people that we're writing for. When you do one of these visits, you get to meet your readers. And that's very often at a school, but it's also at a library, a Jewish community center, book fairs,
Museums,
bookstores,
museums.
museums, any place that wants to have an event, and you're the event. So that could be a lot of different places. And even if we narrow it down to just a school visit itself can be in the library with one class. It could be in the auditorium with the whole school. It could be for high school kids. It could be for early childhood kids. It could be all different ages, all different types of groups. And when you do venue visits, sometimes the parents come, sometimes the grandparents come. So there's all different types of school visits, venue visits, and each of them you have to kind of plan differently. Because if you have a different audience, you got to be very cute if you're with the little kids, and you have to be somewhat cool, or at least, jaded if you're talking to high school kids. So you really have to like figure out who you're talking to, just like if you would write a book. If you write a chapter book for older readers, you speak one way. If you're writing a board book for 2-year-olds, you're speaking a different way. And the same thing happens in person too.
Yeah, so flexibility is key. And I mean, a kind of it seems like a side benefit is maybe this is also an opportunity to do a little audience research, right?
Oh, 100%.
If you
Yeah.
haven't been around your readers before and really understood what they enjoy and what speaks to them, this is kind of an opportunity to get that
Absolutely.
research.
Because I write for different age groups, it's a really good way to be reminded of, oh yeah, 4-year-olds are like this. They're very literal. They're not going to get the irony. And like, and just being in front of them and seeing them and interacting with them is like, oh, these are who they are. So
Right.
it just reminds me. So when I want to write and it just have their picture in front of me. It used to be in my house, right? I have kids, but then they grew.
Right.
And now they're in their 20s. So they're not the focus group that in my living room anymore. So going to schools is I can remember, oh yeah, kids are like this.
Right.
Um, and then the other thing is when you said about getting feedback, I actually in my local school, which I have a great relationship with, um, I was working on a story. I wasn't quite sure what age level it was going to be appropriate for. So I said, can I come? For this was, for free because it was for me. And I went and I read it to kindergartners and I read it to first graders and I read it to second graders to just see where is it hitting, and I figured out the jokes were going way over the heads of the kindergartners, but second graders thought they were hysterical. So I was like, okay, this is for second graders. And if it's for second graders, I'm doing this. And it
Right.
actually, I decided to make it a graphic novel because of that, because I'm like, this is a second grade story. And I think a graphic novel would be the best format for it because of that school visit.
I love that. So it's
Yeah.
like another layer of research, audience research.
It's focus group.
Yeah, focus group. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so that graphic novel is going to come out in 2027 and is the story of Purim as told by the villain Haman.
Very
Watch for
cool.
that.
I can't.
2027. I can't believe
Oh, well,
it.
I have a graphic novel that I don't even think we've put an updated date on. So, what are some other benefits for the author of developing a school and venue visit program?
Okay, first of all, you get paid, so that's always nice. Just like, if you listen to anybody talking about the music industry, a lot of rock stars now don't make money on CD sales or downloads. They make their money on concert appearances. So that's, I think, very true for authors also. Sometimes our compensation leaves somewhat to be desired.
Yeah,
So this is a nice way to supplement things with school visits. Many schools have budgets and they will pay you for your time. What a concept.
right,
So that is certainly a benefit. Um, the other benefits, I mean, the check is in your hand and that's very measurable. The benefits of PR are always hard to measure because can I say they lead to book sales? Sometimes, maybe, I don't know. Um, Sometimes a school visit will include a sale as part of the visit. So you go, and I've been to a JCC's where they buy a book for every child that I'm talking to. And that's a built-in sale. And isn't that great? I've just sold 50 books in one
right,
shot, in addition to whatever they're paying me. Other schools are like, no, we do not do book sales, because we do not do commercial enterprises on campus, which is appropriate too. So it could
right,
really go all different directions. But no matter what, however many kids you're talking to now know about you and now know about your book. Whether that means they're going to take it out of the library, which is also great, or they're never going to see you again, or they're going to buy every book of yours for the next 10 years. I don't know.
right,
It's very hard to measure it, but it's something. It's
right,
something, and it's intangible. There's that like famous thing about advertising. Famous advertising executive says, 50% of my budget on advertising is a waste of money. The problem is I don't know which 50%.
right,
So when I talk about the benefits of school visits and the benefits of PR, that's kind of what I'm like. It matters, but I can't tell you how.
right. It's hard to quantify.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and so let's just digging into school visits for a minute.
Mhm.
How if you have the opportunity, for example, to send a flyer to the school giving kids the opportunity to buy your books, how are you typically doing that? I know when I've done it, I typically try to work with a local independent bookseller to provide the books wherever I'm doing the visit, but I didn't know if you have a specific strategy that you use.
So, for one of my, it depends on the publisher and how they like to do it, and I do whatever they like. So, Little B, who carries Ping Pong Shabbat, um, likes to work with local independent bookstores, and and they'll supply the books and run the book sale. Um, Apples and Honey Press, which is the peddler and the president, it is a smaller publisher, and they prefer that the school calls them and they ship them a box of books
Oh, cool.
directly. Yeah, and so, but then the librarian or the teacher or whoever is coordinating is then doing the work and coordinating the sale and collecting the money and dealing with all of it.
Right.
So, and then another way that sometimes happens is if you're going for a visit when the school is having a book fair, and then they order through the book fair people, whoever the book fair vendor is. So, and then the PTA is doing it. So that's like
Right.
a whole other thing. And the PTA people change every year because they're volunteers. So it's just, I like what you said earlier, like flexible.
Right.
There's all sorts of different flavors.
Well, and I think that's the key. No matter what you're doing, there's always going to be a bunch of moving parts, and
Hmm.
no two school visits are ever the
Hmm.
same, right?
Look, and I know that there are authors who bring the box of books in their trunk and schlep them themselves and run to sale themselves. I don't like doing that personally because they're heavy. Um, and I have enough to think about that I don't want to be running the book sale. Like I want to have a really great presentation for the kids, and that's what I want to focus on. Of course, I'll sign books, but I don't want to be collecting checks and giving change and like running a store. But other people do that, and that's certainly a viable option.
Well, and that's a great point. I mean, I definitely prefer either having the flyers go out ahead of time and then the books are
Mhm.
there ready for me to sign,
Right.
or the flyer goes home afterwards and I can send book plates or whatever.
Yeah.
I doing the actual transactions on school visit day, I'm with you, probably not advisable.
But that's a great deal. If the school is willing to do a sale, I provide them with the flyer, like, and send it to them. You might want to send this flyer home to your parents, and just to make it as easy as possible for them,
Right.
because then it
Yeah.
has the information, it has the order for, I have to say, my kid, please sign the book to Rosemary. This is how you spell Rosemary, and
Right.
deliver it to class 346, and here's the check or whatever.
Yeah, it's
Um,
perfect.
right. Um, yeah, it's perfect, except knapsack mail is not always that efficient.
True, true.
So, like, you always get a kid, I ordered a book, and the teacher's like, there's no envelope, and whatever.
Yeah, I know.
And again, that's why I don't want to be the one to deal with it. Like, teachers, you deal with
Right.
that.
Right, right.
Right. Hmm.
So we're kind of getting into some of the challenges of these
Hmm.
types of visits, but generally speaking, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges of school visits and having a school visit program?
No, I think the challenges we kind of hit, yeah, they're challenges because you gotta be interesting and you want to keep kids' attention, and anything, making a speech is hard. So, and making one that they don't find boring, or, to be engaging and keep their attention. And you really have to think about it. It's not like you just walk in and start talking. You have to have a plan. Just like when you're writing a book, you have an outline, you have it doesn't just happen.
Right.
You kind of have to write your presentation in the same way you would write your book. And that's, targeting the appropriate age level. Discipline is an issue. I just did a visit this week at the Hebrew Academy of Long Beach. Shout out to Hal. And we did a lot of, if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice, because they're talking. Because
Right.
one of the things, one of the challenges when you get a group of, I think we had 50 kindergartners in the room. When you get a group of 50 kindergartners engaged, they start calling out.
Yeah.
Like they're excited. So they're like, I know this, I want to tell you, like that's great because you got them engaged. But then you got to get them quiet again so they can hear you. And then you got to get them engaged again. So that's like, classroom management basically is the challenge. Yeah.
Right. And I would say, like, I always request that teachers stay. I mean,
I
I
don't
know that's
request, I insist.
right. Yeah. I mean, like, you have to have backup because you're giving
Yes.
your presentation and you can redirect, but then you also need people on hand who can kind of whisper in somebody's ear.
Or take
Right.
somebody out if
Yeah.
there's a discipline issue or somebody has to go to the bathroom. So that's like on my list. One of the things I do is before an event is I send the flyer that they can send home, but I also send a checklist. I need an easel, I need a marker, I need a pad of paper because I draw in front of them because I'm an
Mhm.
illustrator. I need the educators to stay in the room. I need a screen that could take my PDF. Here's my PDF presentation. So that's on the checklist. The teachers have to stay in the room.
Yeah, I mean, you really want to set those
I
expectations
really
that,
want to have another line that says, and the teachers cannot talk to each other and chat in the back, but I
or
haven't put that on.
or be on their phones constantly.
Yeah. Yes. Well, they have a hard day and this is a
I
break
know.
for them.
I
But
know.
but they really sometimes I have educators who are so engaged and they are asking me questions too, and some are very tired.
Right. Right. God love
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
right.
Well, so obviously, management is classroom management is one
Mhm.
aspect. So especially when you're dealing with littles, for those of us who maybe don't have a lot of experience with 50 kindergartners or 50 first graders, what just generally speaking, you don't need to give away all your secrets here, but what are some of
My
the tips?
secrets are giveawayable. They're not like, patent pending or anything, but
Right.
yes, please go
Yes.
on.
So what are some of the tips or tricks or things that you found help keep especially the little ones engaged? Like what are the
Well,
types of
that's two
things?
different things,
Mhm.
engaged or quiet. Because
Well,
engaged,
okay, let's do engaged.
okay, engaged is, I mean, first of all, they're going to mirror your energy level. If you're monotone and boring, they're not going to be engaged. If you talk like this, they'll be more engaged. That's just a very basic, if you have a hook, if you have questions that they can answer. Um, but you know what? When you get really little, you don't really want to ask open-ended questions because then they tell you their whole biography and what their grandparents do. So if you can have yes or no questions, then say, who here has a dog? Put your hand on your head. Who here has a cat? Put your hand on your nose. That's already engaging.
Right.
So they're engaged, but they're not going to tell you their life story because they have a lot to say.
Right. I've seen a lot of people who do, chants or, maybe they have a song, like a call and response song that
Yeah.
they teach the
So I
group.
guess that depends on your own personality. I think having me sing would be a very poor choice, so I do not do that. But I do draw in front of them because I can draw. And I'll do a draw along, meaning if the classroom and the library is set up for it and the kids can bring paper and pencil, together, I'll do step by step, draw a character. That's very engaging. They're doing an activity, they get something to take home afterwards, they get something to hold up at the end. Everybody hold up your picture. And then whoever's in charge takes a picture of them, and then that goes on social media.
Right.
And all of that's very engaging. I also like to bring props whenever possible. So just to I have a big purple bag, and I say, could you take something out of my bag of reference? I have all these objects that I use to highlight how you can't just write a book, you have to do research and find out information. So like I'll have a doll dressed up in, old-timey clothes. Look, what kind of shoe? They're not wearing sneakers, they're wearing sandals because they're from biblical times or whatever, And then what are your shoes? Oh, your shoes don't look like their shoes. Just lots of, and so there's a prop, there's a question, there's a relating to their own lives. All of those things are waiting are strategies.
Right. Yeah. So I
Hmm.
think you exactly right. And that's been my experience. Like we just,
Hmm.
especially for the littlest ones, you can't expect that what you're saying alone is going to engage them. You have to have like specific interactive strategies to kind of
Definitely.
get them,
And
get
that's
them.
based on whoever you are. Like I said, I'm not going to sing, I am going to draw. I'm looking at your book. So you have a Wonder Woman book. So you might bring action
Capes.
figures
Yeah. Yeah.
or a
Superhero
crown or
capes.
cool bracelets or
Right.
talk about, what does strength mean? What does
Right.
it mean to be strong? There are different ways to be strong. Like I can already start brainstorming for any book. Like what makes that book come alive?
Right. And and as with any book that we write, you know, we want there to be some kind of lasting message or idea that we leave
Mhm.
kids with, kind of like your ending. What do kids take away
What's your
from it?
takeaway?
Yeah, what's your takeaway, right? So it's the same with your presentation. It has to offer, you want to offer some kind of lasting takeaway that kids are like, "Oh, this is what I figured out today. This is what I
Mhm.
learned."
And that could be the message of your book, or it could be the message of the creative process, depending what if your book has this beautiful message, you want that to be the takeaway. Like the SD Ackerman book might be about, standing strong and being true to yourself. Thank you for holding up the book. Yay. Um, maybe that's the message. But if you have a book that's like informational, which is fine, but it doesn't have this big inspiring message because that's not the book. The message might be about being an author and what that means, or being an illustrator and what it means to be a creative person, and how hard it is that it doesn't happen by magic, that there's a process and you have to work at it and work at it until you succeed. That itself is its own message too.
Well, and I love that because it's kind of a surprising message because I think a lot of kids, when they come to an author presentation, they
Hmm.
think these words emerge from our brain,
Right.
beautifully. And they don't, I always hear teachers talk about trying to reinforce revision and how
Hmm.
important revision is and
Right.
trying again and not getting it right the
Mhm.
first time. So that can be
Right.
a wonderful curricular tie-in to English classrooms if you
Right.
focus on that.
Yeah, like back in the old days when things were mailed as opposed to emailed, had a lot of rejection letters. And I put them all in this loose leaf that's nice and thick because I had lots of them. And I always bring that when I talk to high schools. I'm like, that's a prop that I bring to high schools. And I just hold it up. I said, this is my second loose leaf of rejection letters. There's another one. This is one of two. And this is just from the years 1990, whatever, to 2004. There's more. Like just
Right.
holding it up, like, look how big this is. Look how many times people said no to me.
So a couple of just kind of nitty gritty questions.
Hmm.
So if you're doing a book sale, and these are kind of related, if you're doing a book sale, there may be kids who can't afford to buy a book, or, I know I do a lot of visits at Title I schools
Hmm.
where, kids, especially for a $20 hardback book, like their families just aren't going to be able to afford it. So, do you have any strategies for how to handle that? Or do you have other things that you give away so that everybody gets something?
Okay, when you do an event and kid gets a book, easy peasy, that's so great. So sometimes the school or the venue will pay for everybody to have a book. If I'm doing a send a flyer home and some kids buy the book, it's never everybody. It's always like a couple kids here and a couple kids there, whoever remembered to give the flyer to their parent, and then their parent remembered to send the money in. So I never feel like kids are feeling left out because it's usually like a class of 24 kids bought the book. So that means
Right.
16 didn't. It's fine. Um, but to answer the second part of the question, yes, I always, again, this is the benefit of being an illustrator. I create coloring pages that go with each of my books. So that's my gift for everybody to take home, which means all I have to do is that's part of one of my checklist of things that I send whoever's organizing the event. Attached is my coloring page. Please print out one copy for every child who will be attending and have the teachers give it back out to them at the end of the program to bring home. So that is great because one, you got a gift from me. Everybody's has something. Two, it's an activity. So teachers like me because now they have occupied their children for 10 more minutes. And three is they're going to bring it home. And at the bottom, it says, this picture is from this book. If you want to get this book, it's on Amazon or at your library. You don't have to buy a book. Libraries are these wonderful things. You
Right.
can get them for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the other thing I would say is like put your website address on everything, right?
$100.
Never send anything out without your web address.
Right.
Um, I order, I'm getting ready to do a big school visit in Wisconsin next month. And I love to do just bookmarks. I found an inexpensive place to get bookmarks. And I,
Where? Say more.
imprint,
Okay.
imprint.com. Yeah. So the thing I like about bookmarks is I keep the back blank. And that way, if kids still want an autograph, you know
Oh,
what I
that's so
mean?
sweet. Yeah.
And they didn't buy a book,
Hmm.
now you can still sign something for them and they have,
I love
a
that.
little treasure.
That's very sweet.
Yeah, but I've seen people do stickers. But again, that's an expense to you, right?
Hmm.
Versus like
My coloring page,
a
which
coloring
is,
page.
I
Yeah.
guess what my expense is my time to create
Mhm.
the coloring page.
Right.
But once I've created it, you can print as many copies as you need.
Right. And you're
And the
not even
school,
doing the printing. The school's doing the
exactly, and the
printing.
school's doing the printing. So that is delightful.
Right.
Hmm.
Well, and actually, one thing I probably will do that I have done before is I have like paper airplane templates that I use with wood wire wings, and
See? Oh, that's perfect.
I have the schools print the templates frequently. So when you're just starting out, like cast yourself back to the early days. How do authors need to market themselves? How, what do they need to let schools know that they exist and that they're doing these programs?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to do that. So I'll go through some of them. No matter, okay, first way, it's you got to have a web page devoted to school visits because the teacher is going to come to your page and while you would like them to know about your books, you want them to have a destination for, I'd like to have this author do a school visit. What do I do? So, and on that page is perhaps a downloadable flyer that they could print out and bring to their principal and say, "Hey, look," or email to their principal. Um, a description of what you do. I come to your school, I visit with this age group, we talk about um, bookmaking and ping pong, and the program lasts 45 minutes and it's engaging and great, and you should hire me. On another page of your website, you're going to have links to your books, but on the
Mm-hmm.
and maybe the downloadable flyer includes a picture of your latest book, but that page should focus on this is what a school visit is. This is what I come and provide for you. I personally don't put my rates up because I'd rather they contact me to find out. It's a good way to also like rates are sometimes negotiable.
Right.
So I don't like having them in stone up on a website. Okay, so that's a website. Okay, having a web page doesn't mean anybody will find you. Having a web page means once you make contact with somebody and they're interested, they have somewhere to go to find out more. So how
Right.
do you get them interested? Look, when I'm back in ancient times starting, I'm contacting schools that I already have relationships with. My kid is in kindergarten. I asked the kindergarten teacher, do you guys do school visits? Do you ever have authors come? Who do I talk to? And she'll point me to the right direction. And that's the first visit. Um, you might even do that one for free. Because then when you call up the second school, you say, I just visited school A. We had a great time. Would you like me to come and do the same thing for you? And personal relationships is always going to be the best way to get a visit, or the easiest way, the low hanging fruit.
Right.
Um, now, the thing is, you can't just ask your friends to have a business. You have to get beyond that. So how do you
Right.
get beyond that? There are people who go to conferences like NCTE and do presentations because that's a great opportunity for teachers to see them speak. And once the teachers see them speak, they say, aha, they should come to my school. There are people who do mailers. I've never had much success with mailers. People really don't read their emails. That's me personally. That might be different for you. And then there's word of mouth, and then there's social media. I don't know. This is a tough question.
I think you're putting your finger on what a lot of authors feel, which is it's
Right,
hard, and
right.
especially, depending on who is booking the visit at a school, if
And which
it's
is hard to know because it's so many different possibilities. It's the librarian, or it's the principal, or it's the classroom teacher, or it's the PTA, or it's the parent volunteer for that week.
right, and
It's
and the
really hard.
PTA, and the PTAs frequently turn over positions every year,
Yes.
so just because you worked with somebody
Hmm.
last year
Right,
doesn't mean it's the right person this
right.
year. So
Yeah.
I think this is the hardest part, and
Yes. I got a lot of school visits this year because they heard about my other school visits. But that's very passive. Like I didn't do anything to make that happen except do school visits.
right.
So it's like you start and work begets work. I don't know. What do? Do you find that emailers or mailers work? Because I've never had much success with that.
you find certain school districts that have like a culture of school visits, because where I live, there actually is no culture of having school
Mhm.
visits.
Okay.
So I have to go, there are specific areas that I've come across where
Hmm.
they have people who are really dedicated to it. And
Hmm.
so I try and stay in touch with like librarians at those schools,
Right.
certain teachers.
Right. So I'm
um
on Long Island. They have this thing called BOCES. BOCES is a special, Nassau County and Suffolk County each have their own BOCES. I forget what it stands for. But it is the organization that puts people into public schools, in the
ah
public school system. You have to register with them, you have to get fingerprinted, you have to have insurance. They won't let you come in unless you have insurance. So you have to jump through all those hoops and
right,
then hope that that leads to a school visit.
right,
But
right.
that's like what you said, though, that indicates a culture and they have a setup and a system for getting teachers into the Nassau County, New York public schools. But not
Right.
every district does that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean it's really trial and error. I mean
Mhm.
this school visit I have in Wisconsin next month, I think I did a free World Read Aloud Day, 20-minute
Mhm.
reading to this teacher's classroom probably 3 years ago, and now it has turned into,
A
you know,
visit.
a 2-day visit, 2 days, 4 schools, 2 evening program visit. So but you never know. But for as many times as I've done World Read Aloud Day, that's the one that I can point to and say that turned into a school visit.
Right.
You just
And
don't
then
know.
there's also the Catholic school the Great I'm going to say it wrong, Great Diocesan Read Aloud. So they do that for Catholic schools. And, you just said it turned into a school visit. That's another great point. If you actually get a school visit out of town and someone's flying you in to, I don't know, let's pick Chicago, you can go and then start calling other schools in Chicago. Hey, school PS number 700 is bringing me in on Monday. Would you like me to visit you on Tuesday? Would you like me to visit you on Wednesday? And you can build around it.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly, because then you're sharing travel costs,
You're
right?
sharing
Which
travel costs, but you're in town, so you may as
right.
well. And you can do that with press also. Um, you're doing a school visit, you can call the local, the local free newspapers they give out at the library and say, West Hempstead Herald, I'm going to be at the public school in your neighborhood. Do you want to come and cover the event? Do you want a photo from the event? And then that could lead to more of that amorphous PR stuff that you hope helps later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and in fact, I think yesterday was Read Across America, right? Like
Hmm.
Dr. Seuss week, and I was reading at a local school, just a real quick. It's not a paid visit. It was not a
Hmm.
paid visit. It was just a volunteer service, but the local newspaper was there, and
Hmm.
I talked to the local reporter, right? So now who knows what will come of that, right?
Right,
Because
because
now,
now
yeah,
another school, and if it's just specific to school visits, is that another school is going to see that you did a school visit, and that
right,
might be what prompts them to reach out to you.
yeah.
Hmm.
Or you may be able to, I may be able to I've connected with the librarian. Now I may be able to parlay that into a paid visit. So
Yeah,
it's like you said, there's no formula. Just like I feel
yeah.
like there's no formula for the question, what sells books,
Yes,
Anne,
I wish I
right?
knew that answer. Please tell me when you find it. I want to know.
Ah, so you talked a little bit about your checklist that you have for school visits, and I would also say like contracts, right? Having a written contract is uh, a very good idea, especially with cancellation clauses, and
Wow, you're giving me good advice. I don't actually have a contract.
you
I
should have a
have
contract.
No, I have a confirmation email though, which I
Okay,
find
well,
very valuable because then I can point to it. This is to confirm that. Da 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 da. It's on this date. It's in this room. This is the parking. Very important if you're a New Yorker to know the parking situation. This is the parking. This is the date. This is how long each program will be. This is the how many kids, what ages, how many times I'm speaking. And I do ba 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 ba, and please reply that this is correct, which is
well,
basically them agreeing.
it's a
Yeah,
contract
it is a
essentially.
contract, but I do it by email, and that's a little less, I think it's a little less intimidating to some people sometimes, but I like the cancellation clause. I don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Yeah.
it's good to have something in writing, and I
Mhm.
think, yeah, because things happen, right? I
Oh,
mean,
no, 100%, 100%. And
you
if
know,
you've like traveled and you suddenly get there and, oh, we forgot you're coming, like,
right,
that would be bad. But
right.
actually, that doesn't usually happen because I usually reach out the week before and say, "Hey, I'm so looking forward to the visit. Just want to make sure that you have the easel and the PDF." Like I do the checklist again. Like, remember, you have to have these things.
As
So,
my husband says, trust but verify.
there you go. 100%. It gets again, and it's not like they're busy. They have a lot of things going on. So the easier you make it for them, the more success.
Yeah, I mean, there is nothing like high-fiving those little hands, right? Like
Oh.
if they wanna like high five you or fist
I
bump you, you know.
know. Or they come and just like want to tell you something that, I'm a writer and I wrote this about a dog.
I know, I
Cute.
know. I
It's
love
so
it.
cute.
What is something you wish you had known when you were starting out? Is there anything that you wish you had known?
I keep the teachers in the room is a big one. I guess I wish I knew more that this was a thing. Like it's a thing. And I didn't really know that starting out. I kind of had to discover school visits. Huh, that's a thing. Um, Comfortable shoes is a good one. You don't have to wear fancy shoes. I have these sparkle sneakers now. The kids like it.
Oh, cute.
And also, like, they're all sitting on the floor, so they really see my shoes.
Right.
I don't think
So
I
I
needed
will
to know that, but that's nice to know.
I love that. Well, also, so I've heard the tip. I sometimes pack throat coat tea, slippery elm, if you're doing
Ah,
really, really long visits and you're starting to lose your voice.
yeah.
Uh, Throat
Oh,
coat
here's a
tea
good
is
one.
good.
Ask for the mic. Even
Mm,
if I'm pretty loud, but get the mic because I try to do them without the mic because I always am holding things and holding the mic too is like I need a third hand. But sometimes you really need that mic.
yeah. No, before I was published in the trade market, I was doing school visits with school and library books that I was doing work for hire. The
Mhm.
publisher held the copyright to the book, but they were such fun titles that I was able to parlay that into
You can
some.
do school visits for anything if you have something to share. I mean, I my son did a school visit being a clown once. Like, if you have something that kids will enjoy and has an educational, it's nice if it has an educational component to it. Um, they just have to want you. Mhm.
Oh, well, this has been a fabulous conversation. I know there are a
So,
lot of people who were very interested in this topic, and we're glad that we were discussing it today. So,
mhm.
where can people find you and your books and your school visit page?
Okay, so website is annkoffsky.com, ANNKO, F as in Frank, F as in Frank, S as in Sam, KY.com. And there's school visits page there. There's also the free coloring page packets there. Um, Books are sold on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Indie Bookshop, Bookstop, all the usual suspects. And I'm on Instagram at Ann Koffsky. I have a Substack
All right.
newsletter, which you can also sign up through my website. So
I would encourage people to go take a peek at your school visit page
I
because
do.
you've done something that I don't see everywhere, which is you have little video clips
Yes, yes.
that kind of helps sell the program.
Just, this is what I do. Here you
Mhm.
are, and you can see, I think, my bag of props, or you could see,
Well, no, and it's great. And if you're just starting out, take a peek and it might spark some ideas for what
yeah,
people
sure,
can do for their program.
100%. And if you do that first free event to get yourself um, used to it, um, get a tripod and put your iPhone in it and tape yourself. Then you can take clips of it to make yourself a YouTube video or just to see how you do.
Yeah.
You can watch yourself over to see how you do. That might be a little cringy because it's hard to watch yourself, but you'll learn from it and you'll learn when, how just to have that information. But yeah, that's what I did for like 3 or 4 visits. I just put the tripod in the back, set it up, hit record, and then I have what I need for the website.
And you just prompted me to remember one more thing, which is you can also collect endorsement quotes, right? If somebody
Oh,
had a good,
sure.
if you had somebody had a good visit, you could ask if they gave you good feedback, can I include that on my website?
A
And then you
hundred
can,
percent.
yeah.
And once in a while when I have a new book, I will send an email to all the schools I've ever been to, um, and want to go to, both of them. And I will send out an email saying, here's my newest flyer, here's my newest book, and here's something nice people said about me. And I'll include all that in. And also nice, sometimes the kids write you thank you notes.
Yes.
And that's the best endorsement. And you could take, I think I have on my website still, you just take a couple pictures of those and put them up. It's just another way to illustrate that you talked to kids and they had a good time,
Yeah.
so that's great and it's a fun thing to look at too. And it's a fun thing to get, like, oh,
Right.
like,
I know. I know. Well, Anne, I think we could go all day, but I want to be respectful of your time. But I
I
really
appreciate it.
appreciate everything that you have shared with us.
Oh, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I love talking about this stuff. We're in a crazy business, so you got to share and you got to we all learn from each other. I wrote two things down that you taught me today, so thank you.
Thanks for listening. To get the full transcript of this podcast, sign up for my newsletter at kirstenwlarson.com. It will be sent out with the next regular mailing. All backlist episodes are available via the Nonfiction Kidlit Craft Conversations podcast page on my website. You can watch on YouTube or listen wherever you get your podcast. And if you're enjoying it, please consider leaving a rating or review to help more nonfiction lovers discover it. Want to learn how to inject tension into your picture books and keep readers turning pages? Sign up for my next mini webinar on April 10th, Keeping Readers Hooked, Building Tension in Children's Books. You can sign up at writers.kirstenwlarson.com. Recordings will be available. Join me next time when I speak to Hannah Stiefel and Barrington Irving, co-authors of Let's Fly. We'll be discussing how to adapt stories for multiple audiences and age groups, for example, middle grade and picture book. Until then, happy writing and revising.